I was joking with Braves fans over the weekend, although I don't think they saw the humor, when the Mets won games Thursday and Friday and moved to the top of the wild card standings. I just said, as it should be. I'm under no illusions with this team that really doesn't have great pitching. How do you see, other than, Philly's way ahead of everybody. How do you see Mets, Braves, and this wild card race in the NL?
Well, the Mets aren't even trying to win.
Right.
So they're outperforming. It kind of reminds me of the Brewers a few years ago, where they weren't really supposed to win that much, and then next thing you know, that confidence becomes contagious, and then they just ride it into the playoffs.
Right.
Like the Diamondbacks last year. Where did that come from?
True.
So, I remember growing up with the Rockies coming out of nowhere. If you remember, what was that? 17?
They
maybe?
won like 21 of 22 just to make the playoffs.
Whatever it was, like an 0-3 team, whatever it was, like they were unbelievable. So like that winning is contagious, Adam. So that's why I get a little bit frustrated with teams that just they basically punt on the season. And the Braves ended up winning the World Series in August. They had like a point-something% chance or whatever it was of getting there. Ended up winning it all. So I think baseball is a great game where, and adding an extra wild card spot has only enabled that a little bit more. I'm not telling teams to be reckless and mortgage their future, but I think if you have a chance, you want to further it and, be responsible about it, of course. But it's a little bit annoying when teams, punt on a season altogether, but they don't tell their fan base that.
Elliot Johnson is joining us here. We've talked about this before. If you get in, the margins between the best team and the worst team in the playoffs just aren't enough to say that we can't do it. It doesn't matter if you have great starting pitching. If you play good baseball, I still think the number one factor to success in the playoffs is your bullpen. I don't care what everything else is. If you have a good bullpen, you can piece the rest of it together. And the teams that have the best bullpens or the bullpens that perform best in the playoffs, those teams generally win. So I would never play if I can get in. I think you're right. I'm not mortgaging the future. I'll just use this from a Mets perspective, and then we'll throw to other teams. If their plan was to trade Pete Alonso at the deadline, I wouldn't vary from that. Because I'm not sure, are they going to sign Alonso to a long-term contract after this season? Because if you're not, then you should move him.
My belief, Adam, is that they should move him. I think, he's going to do what he should do and test free agency. I don't blame him for doing that.
No, I don't blame him either.
To do that. But you can make an argument that your resources are better served elsewhere. Again, you're talking to the guy that was, they came up with the Rays, and you've seen how active the Rays have been in this trade deadline, which they're winning the trade deadline, by the way, if there was such a. So I think that you could probably make a case that you could convert some of those resources and better spend them across other areas of your team rather than put so many of those eggs in that basket.
So to the Rays, they trade Randy Arozarena and others. Like, what did they get back? And they're only 3 games out of the last wild card. But are they that far from being able to make the playoffs and advance? And can they still do it? We've seen situations where teams sell, buy judiciously, and still make the playoffs. Could the Rays do that?
Yes, of course. So the Rays, what they're doing is, so they're taking their guys, and this is the same model that they did when we were there. So they take their guys that are obviously very good baseball players, and they send them out before they get to where there's no value.
Right.
They're giving up value, but they're getting it. So, like, you could say, like, getting Arozarena was one of the more impressive transactions that I can remember, because they gave up a first-round draft pick, Liberatore, to St. Louis, and you don't really see teams do that very much. But he helped them go to the World Series. Right. So I would make the argument that if you're getting to the World Series, it was worth the trade.
Sure.
Even though they didn't win, I think getting an opportunity to win it is worth it. So And what has Liberatore done so far? Probably not as much as Rosarena. So then they package up a Rosarena, and they've sent Paredes out. They sent Adams out. And the players they're getting in return are not bad players. Like, they're good, and they're really, really close. Morel with the Cubs, and he's not a great defensive third baseman, no question about that. But the guy can hit, and he's going to hit a bunch of home runs. And watch what happens. He's going to have a great couple years. He's going to start getting expensive, and they're going to trade him, and then they're going to lather, rinse, and repeat.
Right.
This is what they. I mean, the Rays absolutely fleeced the Pirates when it came to Chris Archer. They got who's the righty that they got now that traded to the Dodgers?
Yes, Tyler Glasnow.
Like Blinders. What's his name?
Glasnow.
Yeah. Holy cow! That guy is so good. And they packaged him up, and they get Pepio for him. So you see how it just continues over and over again, Adam. They trade value for value, and it never ends. It's like this family tree where you have a trade here, and then all the players that stem from it over the generations. And they're the best in the business at doing it. I applaud them.
They are very good at it. It comes with a risk because it's very difficult to predict what prospects are going to turn into. And when you walk that, I mean, it's a high wire act. Now, they're getting a new stadium, if I'm not mistaken. Will that change their philosophy at all?
No, because it works. And then the other reason why it works in St. Pete versus other places, Adam, is because the Rays play with one arm tied behind their back all the time. And so anything that they do is always going to be good. You know, I mean, they're in the AL East, you know, and the Orioles are unbelievable this year.
Right.
The Yankees do what they do every year. The Red Sox are not doing very well, but they should. But expectations in Boston are different than expectations in St. Pete. So that's why they have a model that is repeatable. The one thing that was a little bit aggravating, and I'll have to send this to you, Adam, the amount of revenue that they spend on their player roster is one of the lowest in the industry. Now, you could look at that and be a little bit aggravated by it, but you can't argue with the results that they get year in, year out. So I respect how disciplined they are. I just wish when they felt like they had an opportunity, they would do a little bit more of going all in. But that's why they compete, generally speaking, every single year.
Yeah, Elliot Johnson is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Yeah, they don't spend. Their payroll is almost always among the bottom, 5 to 7 in all of baseball. And theoretically, those are teams that are absolutely not trying to win, maybe actively trying to not win. The Pirates are normally in that group as well. Maybe it's a little different this year because one of their players, and he'll be on this contract for the next 2 years also, Paul Skeens, the pitcher, is a rookie. He was drafted a year ago. Could the Pirates do more? Could the Pirates actually win?
Well, it could, but ownership is one of the worst out there, Adam.
Yeah.
So the Pirates are owned as an organization to generate money for the owner. They're not owned as a football team to win.
Right.
If you're a Pirates fan, I'm sorry, but that's just how they do things. And I don't listen to what they say. I listen to what they do. And year in, year out, they aren't spending their competitive tax on their roster. They're putting it in their pocket. So, do you want to win, or do you want to make money, or do you want to do both? I would argue that the Phillies are interested in winning.
Yeah.
And what comes as a result of that is they have record attendance. I think they have the lowest amount of vacancy seats in Major League Baseball this year because obviously they have a very passionate fan base. And, in credit to Dombrowski and Sam Fold, they're winning.
Yeah, those investments come back when you are successful, and the Phillies are successful. And look, they've been good now for a number of years. This is not a flash. They're probably better, maybe now. I know they've struggled the last couple of weeks, but they're probably better now than they were when they went to the World Series a couple of years ago. Well,
they've got a great team. The Hayes transaction was smart. You're not going to get any offense out of Rojas. So you can platoon Hayes in there, probably put Marsh in center field, lose a little bit of defense because Rojas is the lead out there in center field. Right. And then you can just put Rojas in after you get an advantage when you're winning. Put Rojas in for defense and just move on once you give the ball to the bullpen, to your point, Adam. You remember the Royals in 2014? They had like 6 guys in the bullpen, all throwing 100.
Yep.
That's a recipe for success if you're winning 1-0.
Yeah, look, that's a model. If you've got 7 or even 8 guys in the bullpen that you trust, regardless of whether or not they're throwing 100, but if you've got 7 or 8 guys in the bullpen that you trust, I mean, the game just is so much shorter, and those guys don't wear down as much. Now, you can't throw them, like 6 innings in a 3-day span, but it just gives you so many more options. Are the Braves? Look, the Braves have been a sub 500 team now since the middle of May. They did win the last 2 in New York over the Mets, and so they're like number 1 in the wild card. They're a game and a half ahead of New York, who's 3rd in the wild card right now. But are the Braves kind like a house of cards because there are a couple of injuries to pitchers that are starting to show. We haven't seen great Charlie Morton lately. The offense, other than Marcell Ozuna, has just been abysmal. Like, they're one of the worst in baseball over the last 2 months. Are they kind of a house of cards, or are they probably okay?
Nah, the Braves are going to be fine. So one of the things to look at, and forgive me for saying this, but your fan base may or may not like this. So batting average on balls in play, BABIP.
Right.
So the first half has transpired. The guys that did underperformed, you expect them to outperform, and then you expect Ozuna to come back down to earth.
Right.
And he's exceptional. Okay, absolutely exceptional. But I mean, I expect the guys to do better. I think their defense has been really, really suspect, man. I watched. I don't even want to talk about it, but there was a play in right field the other day that was just absolutely...
ended the game. That was the game-winning hit by Jeff McNeil. It was a single. It was, how do you overrun that ball? You're a major leaguer.
I mean, so outfield defense is let's be real. It's one of the easiest things to do on a baseball field, Adam. Okay, and I mean no disrespect to outfielders that claim that it's hard. Relative to baseball and everything else, catching a fly ball is one of the easiest things to do, guys. And so that is not going well. We got some problems. So I expect them to shore that up. They're going to be fine. They've got an owner and a GM that really wants to win.
Yep.
And so I expect them to I think their roster is talented enough. I think they're going to be fine.
That's what I've been telling Braves fans that I've been going back and forth with, because I've been enjoying this Mets run. And the Mets are probably 15 games over 500 since their low water mark. Part of it is because Francisco Lindor is looking like the best version of Francisco Lindor, or something close to when he was crushing it for the Indians. Then the Indians, now the Guardians, I guess. And Francisco Alvarez, the catcher, is simply one of the best in all of baseball. In both sides of the ball. I mean, he's great behind the plate, and he's obviously a good hitter. He's been a little bit of a slump now. So it's not about Alonso. It's about some of their other guys. They also seem to be playing a little bit better defense. But I've been saying I think that the Braves are going to be fine. I know the Yankees have a great record. Are the Yankees going to be fine? Because they have become really a 2-player offense. It's been Judge, it's been Soto. Nobody else seems to be doing much.
Man, so I've been on this program talking about how good Juan Soto is, and he's really let me down until this year. And he's gonna make so much money. He really is one of the best players in the world. Aaron Judge is one of the best players in the world. You saw that ball he hit in Boston the other night out?
Yeah. He's a machine.
God.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember the home run derby in Boston as a kid, and McGuire hitting balls, Berman back, one of the most amazing things, and Judge did it in a game, and you're like, holy cow. So the Yankees are going to be fine. They are going to have to figure out how to get offense out of somebody other than those two. I'd be curious to see how LeMahieu does.
He's been bad.
Volpe's hasn't been what you've hoped for. They've got some guys that certainly need to step up. The play that Grisham made in center field the other day was, again, I really am a major league manager because I'm just pointing to this lack of effort and energy. he'd better not do that again, or he's going to get booed out of New York. I mean, they're not going to give him another mulligan like that. So, hopefully he wakes up and doesn't do that again, because he is a good baseball player, but he's kind of underperformed. So they've got a lot of guys that haven't really done what you've hoped for. At the same time, Judge and Soto have basically carried them.
Yeah.
And I'll give Cashman some credit. He's done a pretty good job of making some moves that have certainly helped them. But if we get into the playoffs, I'm going to walk both those guys and make somebody else hurt me, even if there's nobody out. I don't care.
Yeah, I think it was the first of the 2 games against the Mets. They walked Judge the first 4 times he was up. And then the last time he was up with Soto on first after just being walked, Judge took call strike 3. It was a great pitch, though, inside corner at the knees, and it was a legit strike. It was not one of these umpire imaginary strikes. It was a legit strike, but he took it. He took a call strike 3. All right, final thing for Elliot Johnson, and we've got 2 months left of the season. Who are the 2 best teams? Best team in each league right now. Philly, I'm going to guess. In the National League, but you might think differently. Who are the 2 best teams right now?
So I like the Guardians in the American League. Shout out to former Durham Bull Stephen Vogt managing after taking the mantle from Tito. I like the Guardians a lot. Very, very scrappy. And I don't think that, it's been one of the most impressive things to watch. Jose Ramirez is incredible. I think they have a really good, well-rounded team. I'd like to see how they can perform against, the media circuses that come with the Yankees. The Orioles have been really, really good, but I'm going to go ahead and give it to the Guardians. I'd like to see how they do. I'll say on the National League side, the Dodgers.
Okay.
The Dodgers. They haven't really played to their potential yet. I think that the Dodgers, year in, year out, every single year, they have so many players, and then they have so many players in the minor leagues, Adam, that you don't even know about, you haven't heard of, that are just as and waiting to take over. One of the things that fans here don't understand is if you go to a Durham Bulls game, virtually every player on that roster is interchangeable with a big league player, and that's what they've recreated over in LA, because Andrew Friedman's the person that kind of created that. So, if you end up going to a Bulls game, understand those guys, virtually everyone on that roster could be in St. Peter, another team, and just as good, and you wouldn't know a difference. And so the Dodgers have star power that is just waiting to potentially take an opportunity that maybe it's not their turn. And they have the financial resources. And Ohtani, is Ohtani. Freeman is Freeman, and he's hurt right now.
Right.
So I think they have so many guys that haven't really quite hit on all cylinders yet, and so I would be worried about the Dodgers more than the Phillies.
Elliot Johnson, our man. I appreciate your time, my friend. Thank you. We'll talk again. We got 2 more months of baseball. I will talk to you very soon.
Pleasure as always, Adam.
You got it. Elliot Johnson here on The Adam Gold Show.